Okay. I don't know if this idea is working or not because the camera, we don't have it here. I hope that I can have a screen recording on my iPad. So let me just write here for you. Okay. So to make sure that everything works fine, let me just give you a warm-up problem. Okay. So I will write here example. Yeah, these problems are actually very simple. Hello, the lesson has started. Okay, so listen to me. So we are supposed to solve this equation. I don't know if this idea is working because the problem is that I don't have option of pausing the video here waiting for you. But then that would be a lot of work for me. Anyway, so if you want to solve this equation, by the way, this equation is an equation at the level of the book. So everyone should be able to solve this and find x for me. That's the bad point, that I don't have pausing option here. Okay, I have to stop. Okay, now let me solve the first one for you. Please answer my question. So if I want to solve the first problem that you see here, so you see that you have actually x is your variable and you have some denominators. So probably this is not A-level question, might be B or C are A-level questions that you are facing more than two fractions. But if I want to solve this, if you remember what I told you, first of all, we have to get rid of all the fractions by multiplying by an appropriate number. And the appropriate number is not necessarily the product of the denominators, is the one in lowest term, yes? So in principle, some of you might make this mistake that you multiply by 40. If you do it by 40 and solve the problem, you will get the correct answer and I will give you the full mark, because that is not wrong, but that is not efficient. I want you to learn to do things more efficiently. So instead of multiplying by 40, what is preferable here? Yes? Multiply by 20. So this 20 I will actually find, and I multiply both sides by 20. Yes. So part A, I multiply 20 on the left hand side, and I will do the same thing on the right hand side. Yes. But then I told you the whole point of this is not to multiply. You can imagine that I am going to multiply this one here and here. Yes? But when you multiply this one by this one, the rule is to simplify this in your head. How many times? 2 times. And 2 is the number that is supposed to be multiplied here. So then it becomes 2 times 4x minus 1. Then I want to do the same thing. I will take this 20 and I want to multiply it here. There is a negative sign, so I would write this negative sign. And then this 20 and this 4 are simplified. How many times? 5 times. This 5 should be multiplied here. So this becomes negative 5 times 5x plus 2. And of course, on the right-hand side, I don't think we can do anything. I multiply just, it becomes minus 60. And then it becomes a problem which is simple. You have to be careful not to make mistakes. What I am supposed to do, I multiply 2 here, I multiply 2 there. I will multiply the whole minus 5 here and here, yes? So what happens is that it becomes 8x minus 2 minus 25x minus 10. On the right hand side I will have minus 60. I simplify this a little bit. 8x minus 25x is minus 17x. It minus 2 minus 10 is minus 12. And then I have minus 60. So I will keep minus 7x here. I move 12 to the right hand side. 17, thank you. Minus 60 plus 12. So it becomes minus 17x is equal to minus 48. And then I want to make x alone, so I divide by minus 17. Minus signs are cancelled, and I will get this. But I cannot simplify it more than that, so I have to stop here. No calculator is allowed. If you put this number in the calculator and write the approximate value there, it's not acceptable. You have to keep the exact value. So that would be my solution, yes? Yes? I don't know how many of you got this answer right. Yes, good. So if you can solve this problem for the exam for C-level questions, you don't have any problems. But let me also solve the other one. I don't know how many of you got time to find the answer to the second one or the third one. And I have intentionally changed the letter from x to a and from x to y. Don't think that you have always worked with the variable x. So yeah, we have enough space here. So let me just start solving the problem. So you have the solution. Do you have the question in front of your eyes? Because I want to go down. Which question was that? Here I have wrote it from here. Okay, so let me go and solve question number B. I think it would be a little bit wiser if I take this one with me to the other page. Yes. Copy, and then I go here, paste it here. Okay, so let us solve this problem. Again, I have an equation with fractions involved. But how many fractions are involved here? 3 of them. Again, I have to multiply by an appropriate number. What the appropriate number here is? 12, yes? So it's simple. What you have to do is to multiply everything by 12. So I would multiply this expression by 12 on the left and on the right. I also have to multiply the right hand side by 12. But then again, let me not repeat. 12 and 6, how many times? 2 times. So I have to multiply 2 here. So let me write this down. So it becomes 2 times 2a minus 3. And then I will go positive. This one and that one are simplified. It becomes 3 times. I multiply 3 here. So it becomes 3 times 3a minus 2. And finally, this one, then this one becomes 1. I have to multiply 1. Of course, you don't need to write it down, but let me write it here. 12 times 4 is 48. And then I expand that. So it becomes 4a minus 6 plus 9a minus 6 plus 5a plus 6 is equal to 48. And then what happens is that you have 4a and 9a and 5a. You add them together, it becomes 18a. One of these 6 and the other one is cancelled. Minus 6 is left for me, 48. I move 6 to the right hand side. 48 is already there. It becomes positive 6. 18a is equal to 54. And then finally, if I want to calculate a, it becomes 54 divided by 18. And I think, be careful, you are not allowed to leave it like this if it is possible to simplify. And in this case, it is possible. How much is that? 3. So that is your answer. Any questions? So you see that they are really, really simple compared to the problems that we solved together last time. And of course, I think let me just do the other one as well, and then we are finished. We go to the new lesson. Yeah, that's also very important. So let me take this one with me. So we go here. Okay, so here I have 4 fractions involved, but what is the good number for multiplying everything by that number? 60 is probably, yes, 60 is the lowest one because we have 4, 3, 5, and 20. The lowest number that I can multiply is 60. So I will multiply everything by 60. So I will write 60 here, and then I have 3y minus 1 divided by 4 plus y minus 2 divided by 3 minus y minus 1 divided by 5. And on the right hand side I have 60 multiplied by 21 over 20. And the same story, I multiply this here, here, and there, and then before multiplying I do simplification. Yes, so what will happen? I'm going to multiply this by that one. 4 to 4 1 times, this one is 15 times, and then I have to multiply 15 here. So this becomes 15 times 3y minus 1. And then the next one, this one divided by 3 is 20 times, and 20 I have to multiply it here. So it becomes 20y minus 2 minus, because I have a minus sign, 5 and this one are simplified. This is 12 times, so I have to multiply that by 12. On the right hand side, what will happen? 20 and this one 3 times, I have to multiply 3 by 21, which is 63. And then you see that immediately I know I got rid of the fraction. So this I multiply, it becomes 45y minus 15 plus 20y minus 40 minus 12y plus 12 is equal to 63. I do some simplifications. This one, and this one are similar, so it becomes 53, yes? Yes, it becomes 53y, and then this one is minus 55. Minus 55 plus extra 12, it becomes minus 43. On the right hand side I have this. Yes, do you agree with me? So this becomes 43y. I already have 63. I move this one to the right, becomes positive. And then it becomes 106. And then again, the answer is nice. Divided by 53. But you shouldn't leave it like that, because the answer is actually 2. Yes? Okay, do you have any problems with these questions? So they are extremely simple. So let me just jump immediately to the new lesson. This lesson is very simple but very, very important, especially if you want to, for example, do something in physics or not. Let me start with a very simple question, okay? Sometimes in an equation you have more than one variable, but all of them are given to you except one of them. So you should be able to find that one unknown variable. So might be the famous one is the formula for physics, yes? The distance, let me call it in English, the distance traveled by a moving particle with speed v at time t is this, yes? This is the formula that if you have your constant, assume that you have a moving particle with constant speed v and you wait for t seconds, you want to see how much this moving particle moves. Yes? So what you need to do, you need to multiply your speed by the time that has been passed, then this will give you the distance traveled by that moving particle. Is that understandable? Okay. But sometimes you know the distance, you know the time, and you want to calculate the velocity. Sorry, the velocity is actually speed, yes? The velocity is the speed including its direction. In that case, this is not useful, because here, if I ask you how many variables you see in this equation or in this equality, you say 3 variables, d, v, and t. Yes? All of them are variables, because depending on which problem you are solving, the speed of the moving particle can change from one particle to another, time can change, the distance also can change. All of them are variables. In this way of writing the formula, my concentration, my focus is on distance. So distance is equal to v times t. This formula is useful if you give me speed, if you give me time, then I can tell you how much this particle has moved, yes? This formula in this form is useful for this. But sometimes we know the distance, we know time, we want to calculate the speed of the particle. So what should I do? I need the formula, the physical formula is exactly the same formula, yes? But the subject is different. The subject I am interested in is no longer distance, is speed. So I need to make v the subject of this equation, and I have to make v alone on the left-hand side or one side of the equation. Yes? Is that understandable? So here, if I ask you, so for example, the question would be this. I can ask you, solve d equals to vt for v. Something like this. If this question is given to you, it means that you have to make v the subject. You need to treat that v is your unknown. Every other variable in the problem is known. This is the meaning, how you need to think. Okay, so how should I do that? It's very, very simple. So I would say that d is equal to vt. I want to make v alone. So what should I do to make v alone?
V equals to d divided by...
So what should I do? I have to divide everything by t, because I want to make v alone, yes? So I divide the left-hand side d by t. I also divide the left-hand side by t. But this t and that t are cancelled, so what is left for me is d over t is equal to v. If I ask you, is this a new formula in physics? No. This formula and this formula, from physics point of view, they are completely the same formula. But this formula, the subject, the focus is on distance. Here, the same formula, but the subject is a speed. So you are finding the speed. Is that understandable? So for this question, I can ask you, what is the time? I give you the distance, I give you the speed, and I ask you, how long does it take for this moving particle to go from this point to that point, distance d away from each other, yes? In that case, it means that what is my subject? My subject is t. I have to make t alone. Yes? So if I want to do this, what I have to do, I would write d equals to vt. This time, what should I do to make t alone? This time I have to divide by v. So it becomes d divided by v is vt divided by v. But this time v and v are cancelled. And what is left for me is d over v is equal to t. So this is the core of today's lesson, but of course you can have more complicated formula. So you see that this is not that useful probably in mathematics, but in science and physics this is really useful, because most of the time you have a formula. In that formula, some parts are given to you and you have to find some another unknown, yes? So you need to understand how to make that a subject. For example, even in mathematics. So for example, later we will study an equation of this form. This is an equation of a straight line. So it means that if I give you different values for this and I ask you to draw this graph of this in GeoGebra, every time you get a straight line, okay? But that is not the topic of today's lesson. The topic of today's lesson is that how can you make one of these variables a subject? You know, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 variables. Yes? If you want to make x the subject, it means that you need to find a way to make x alone. So let us make x the subject, okay? So let x be the subject. Okay, if x is the subject, what should I do? Okay, help me to do that. What do you think I should do? I start from my equation. My subject is as before. My subject is x. So my strategy is to make x alone on the left hand side, or one side, it doesn't matter which side. So what should I do? What is the first thing to do? I want to make x alone. Yes, Rasmus?
Start by making the term ax alone on one side.
Yes, first of all, let us make ax alone, yes? So do you remember, now this term is playing the role like 2x. It contains your variable, so let me keep it on the left hand side, and then whatever is left, I want to move it to the other side. Yes? So what happens if you want to solve the problem? I will keep ax here. I move I move by to the right, it becomes negative by. I move c to the right, it becomes negative c. Okay? And then I want to make x alone. It is not done yet. I need to do what? Divide by a. Yes, I divide by a, and then you have two ways of dividing the right hand side by a. Let me just write this with a big fraction line and then divide by a. This is possible. And then you see here this a and that a are cancelled, and I achieve the goal. X is now alone in one side, And then I have minus by minus c divided by a. So this is completely acceptable. Yes? But let me change my color here. You might choose, for example, this one. Here, you can also go in this way. When I divide, the left-hand side becomes x, but I can say to myself there are two terms to divide. That is also possible, not wrong. So if you write minus by divided by a minus c over a, that is also acceptable. Yes? So it doesn't matter how do you act. Yes?
You write 1 over a times negative by minus c.
Another way to write, so what you say is to put this minus sign here, you mean?
No, to put
Yeah,
1 over
this
a.
minus sign here?
No.
No, that's also possible. Yes, let me write this. Any way that you can write, it's acceptable. For example, you can write it in this way. I don't know. For example, you can write it as x equals to, is that what you mean? Something like this? Yes? Okay, but if you write like this, that's also acceptable. But I prefer not to write it like that. Yes? Because it is, why? For example, if I write minus over 2 multiplied by 3, do you really leave it like this in this form? If they are numbers, you write minus 3 over 2. Yes, but if you write minus 1 over 2 times 3, that is also right. It is not wrong. But which one do you prefer for that number? Do you prefer to write minus 3 over 2 or write it in that form?
It depends.
I wouldn't say it depends. If I want to have the final form of the answer, I would prefer to write it as minus 3 over 2. Yes? Because if I write it in this way, it means that it is not done yet. The multiplication hasn't been done. You should do it yourself. But when I write it as minus 3 over 2, it means that I have already done that for you. It's not wrong, but I prefer either this one or that one. Yes? Is that understandable? Yeah. Of course, let me also continue. If you want to, it's not compulsory, but you can also write it in this way. That is also correct. Yes? Because this minus sign that you see here is for this one and that one. By the way, if you have a little bit of doubt, let me mention this with a different color here. So if I have a minus sign in front of a fraction, I can write it as minus a over b. I can write it as a over minus b. So remember, these three are the same. What is the consequence of that? The consequence of that is that if I have a minus sign, in the numerator I have x plus y divided, for example, by z. I can write it as minus x plus y divided by z. And then this minus sign not only is for the first one, but also for the second one. Yes, so remember that this number that you see here is some students write minus x plus y divided by z. If you write this for that one, it is not correct. Yes? Yes, it is not. But this one is equal to this one, that is correct. So the minus sign which is behind the fraction line it is for the whole numerator or it is for the whole denominator, depending which one you prefer. But it goes for the whole expression. Be careful about that. Yes? Okay, so now let us start with the same function, with the same equation, but let us make y the subject this time. Okay, so let me just write, let y be the subject. Okay, in that case, can you tell me what should I do for the same equation that you see here? But this time I want to make y my subject. So I have to make y alone. Yes? So what is the first step to do?
Move ax and c to the right.
Right. So I keep by here, and then I move c and ax to the right. So I would prefer to write minus x minus c. If you write minus c minus ax, that is also acceptable. And then I want to make b and to make y alone, so I divide by b. So I divide by b. It's also correct to write it in that way. So I divide by b. Or I don't know, if you want to, you can write minus ax plus c over b. And then if you want to, you can write it as minus a over bx plus c over b. I don't know, if you want to, you can write it as minus, oh, sorry. This should be negative. Yes? So I can write it in this way. Or I don't know, you can write it as ax b minus c over b. All of them are correct. Yes?
I didn't see that.
Yeah. So you see, it doesn't matter which one you answer, all of them are equivalent. As far as all of these are equivalent, they are correct. Is that understandable? So let me start from this one, and this time I want to make C the subject. Okay? So let me go to the other page. I will write the same thing again. So let me write, let C be the subject. In this equation, the equation is ax plus b. This is probably the simplest one, yes? If I want to make C the subject, what I have to do, I have to keep C alone. And then actually this is done because I just move ax and by to the right, yes? So the answer would be very simple. It would be minus ax minus by. So that's the answer. Let me just do one more thing. We can say, for example, let b be the subject. Yes? So what happens here? I will start from this equation again, but my goal is to make b alone. So what I have to do? I have to keep by. I move ax and c to the right, and then I want to make b alone. So I have to divide by y. So the left-hand side becomes this, and the right-hand side becomes this. Yes? Is that understandable? So that is the subject of today's lesson. But for example, let me give you another probably better formula in physics, yes? So if you leave, I don't know, a stone or something from some height, it will start actually coming down, yes? So the distance traveled, if you study physics later, the distance traveled by that stone would be 1 over 2 gt squared, yes? G is the gravity acceleration, and T is the time from the time that you have released the stone, and D is the distance after that time. Okay? So for example, here, this is the formula. Now assume that, and by the way, you will study in physics later that G is around 9.8 meters per second. So that's the constant of gravity for Earth. So if you go to the moon, the mass of the moon is smaller, so this number is smaller. If you go to the sun, this number is actually much bigger, yes? So it depends how much mass the planet contains. But forget about those physics problems. Now assume that I give you the distance, you are supposed to find the time for that takes that the stone goes down, for example, 100 meters or whatever. You want to find the formula. So I want to make T the subject. This is a little bit unusual. Why is that? Because so far we haven't studied these equations systematically. If I ask you what is the degree of this equation when T is the subject, what is the answer? What is the degree of this equation?
Degree 2.
This is degree 2, because if T is my subject, then you see the highest power that appears is not 1, is 2. So we haven't studied these kinds of questions systematically, but this is not a hard one. So how should I find this? I have to make T alone.
Yes.
So what should I do?
Move 1 over 2g to the left and move.
No, there is no moving. Be careful. This is sometimes the students make mistake. There is no moving here. That's multiplication. I cannot move. I have to divide, if that is the meaning of moving, yes? So first of all, do not forget, I have a fraction here. If I have a fraction, what was the first step to do? To get rid of the fraction. But this is very simple, so let us multiply everything by 2. I prefer to do it in that way. So I multiply everything by 2. What happens on the right? It becomes this. Agree? Because the 2 that I am multiplying will cancel this 1/2. Okay, but then I want to make t squared alone for the time being, so I have to divide by g. This becomes t squared, yes? But I am looking for t. If I give you t squared and I ask you what is t, what you're supposed to do? Take a square root, yes? So you take a square root, it becomes 2d over g is equal to t. From physics point of view, this is correct, but from mathematical point of view, it's not complete. Can you say me why?
It has fraction.
No. Not. If it is in mathematics and you want to solve it, you have to put plus and minus. Why is that? Because if I ask you x squared is 4, what is x? If you say 2, it is not wrong, but there is another number which satisfies this equation, and that is minus 2. Yes? So what you do, you write x is plus or minus a square root of 4, but the square root of 4 is 2, so you will write plus or minus 2. So in principle, if this is a real mathematical problem, the correct answer is this. Yes? But now that this is a physics problem, I do not need to put this. Can you say me why?
Because it can't be negative.
Yes, exactly, because time cannot be negative. So be careful. If you are solving a physics problem, you need to understand what is the domain of those variables. Yes? When it comes to mathematics, mathematics doesn't care about these variables. They are just variables. But in physics, we are using this for time. And now we know that time is not negative. So if I get a negative value for time, it doesn't mean it is wrong. It means that mathematically we have two solutions, a positive one and a negative one, but the negative one in the context of physics is not meaningful. So I would say that in physics, if t is time, this is the correct solution. But if I ask you to solve the same equation and I don't tell you that this is a physics problem, then you have to put plus and minus because there are two solutions available. Yes? Is that understandable? Yes or no? For example, another example probably would be the last one. This is the Newton's gravitational law, yes? So what does it mean, for example, if I want to describe it a little bit? So if you have a particle of mass m, and you have another particle, say, of mass... okay, I can do better. Yes. Yep. If I have another particle of mass m, and if the distance between the centers of these two particles is r, this is the force of gravity with which they are attracting each other. By the way, it is not believable. It's good to see in the YouTube. I didn't believe that two small spheres, they really attract each other, yes? So, yeah, if they, of course, I have studied this a lot, so I knew they should have attract each other. But this number is so small. This is nearly 67, 10 to the power of minus 11. Okay? So this is the reason that the force of gravity is so weak. And by the way, it's weak, you know. I'm not that powerful man, but I can lift a pen. So it means that the all planet Earth is pulling this down, but I actually defied the gravity, yes? So it is not that strong. But on the other hand, it has kept us actually on it without actually, the seas and everything is actually attached to the planet because of that. Anyway, this constant is so small, but you can see the video on YouTube. I think it's called Cavendish experiment. Cavendish was the scientist who for the first time measured this constant with good accuracy. Okay? So that's from physics part of view. But now this is the force of gravity between these particles. So now, for example, they might give you the force. If they give you this mass, and the distance, you put all those numbers here, then you can find the force of gravity between them. Yes? But sometimes it is also good to know, sometimes they give you the force between two masses, they give you the value of those masses, and then you are supposed to find what is the distance between these two masses. Yes? So we want to do that. So how should we do that? It means that you are supposed to make R the subject of your equation. So in principle, you should be able to solve for R. It is not a standard problem, but I think you can solve it because you already know what to do. So let me write this force, and I ask you, let R be the subject. Okay, can you tell me what to do? What's the first step to do? I want to find R. By the way, this is the terminology that I want you to learn. Here, I would say D is expressed in terms of T and G. Sorry, D is expressed in terms of G and T. The word in terms, I want you to learn. When I say that, what do I mean? I use it a lot. So here, I would say that force is written in terms of G, M, and R. Okay? So here, I would say that B is written in terms of A, X, C, and Y. So that's the meaning of this word when I say something is written in terms of some things. Yes? Okay. Now, I want you to... So the one way is to say that let R the subject. Another way is to say that write a formula that expresses R in terms of F, capital G, little m, and capital M. That's also another way to express the same thing, which I usually use a lot. Yes? Now, can you tell me, how do you want to make R the subject in this problem? Yes, Sergey?
Multiply both sides by R squared.
Yeah, I would recommend that because we learned this. So, yeah, I want to get rid of fractions. Yeah, very good. So let me just do that. I multiply the left-hand side by R squared. Of course, let me be patient a little bit. I also multiply the right-hand side by R squared. If someone asks you why did you do that, you would say that because this R squared will cancel this R squared and I got rid of fractions, which is good. So let me just do one more step. R squared F is equal. Now this one and that one are canceled. So what is left for me is G M M. Okay, then what, Sergey?
Divide both sides by
F, because the goal is to make R alone. So I divide by F. Let us do it in our head. So what happens for the left? It becomes R squared. And what happens to the right? It becomes G M, capital M, divided by F. But this is not finished yet. It's good, but it's not finished yet because I want to make exactly R. So what should I write? Now answer it in two directions. If it is mathematics, if it is physics.
Mathematics is plus minus square root.
We have to put plus and minus. But in physics, do we really need to put plus and minus? If no, why? Yeah, you can tell.
Oh, no, because there can't be a negative
Distance. R denotes the distance between these two particles, and it doesn't make sense if I say that. So if you are really solving this problem in the context of physics, you don't have to put plus and minus. But remember, because here we are doing mathematics, most of the time, 99%, whenever you have x squared is equal to something, you have to write plus and minus when you are supposed to find the answer. Okay, so here, now that we know that this problem is a physics problem, so I would say that this is equal to square root of G little m capital M and then divided by force. Yes, is that understandable? Okay, so I don't think the problem is hard, but this is the next section that was the lesson for today. It is very useful for other parts of science that you have a formula with different variables. You want to make one of them your subject. Yes? Is that understandable? Okay, so let me pause the video. I hope that I have to do a lot of things to glue these videos together because I don't know why they don't put a very simple pause button so that you can pause. Yeah.